Shrek 2 came out in 2004, which was 20 years ago. Close enough. So I've been going through every single pop culture reference I could find to figure out, 20-ish years later, how has Shrek 2 aged? If you've been on this channel before, you may know that I made a video about how Shrek 1 has aged. Because 20 years counts as a full generation of people, we examine the film from the perspective of how this new bunch of humans would be able to understand the pop culture references being made a generation later. And now we can do the same with Shrek 2. Like, Fiona pulls off some Street Fighter 2 moves. Would someone born in the last 20 years know that? Given the Street Fighter franchise is still going strong, obviously yes. Likewise, there's shared knowledge in cultural osmosis, which can be much harder to judge. So like the Indiana Jones hat roll. The film is obviously much older than 20 years, but it's something so ingrained into pop culture that it's reasonable that the new generation would be able to pick up on it. An aged reference isn't a criticism of the film itself, simply an examination of how pop culture can shift, change, and evolve. Now, you might think, does it matter if a reference has aged or not? Do you need to know all about men are from Mars, women are from Venus to enjoy this film? No, of course not. But it did matter to the people making Shrek 2. For example, there's a joke about a bush that's shaped like Shirley Bassey.
And there's that bush that's shaped like Shirley Bassey!
And even the directors were worried, is this a reference anyone would get?
There was one of the jokes where we didn't know what to do. If that should be in the film, if it should be taken out of the film. But then again, you know, every screening I go to, either the older the audience or the more obscure musical taste they have, you'll always hear a few people just howl, and the rest of them just kind of look confusingly around.
They gave the pop culture references a lot of consideration. So now, let's see how it's paid off. And we begin with a pop culture reference that made me think, oh yeah, I guess that would be a pop culture reference. Shrek 2 is the story of Shrek travelling to far, far away to get the blessing of Fiona's parents, but the fairy godmother wants to destroy their marriage. And obviously, being a sequel, Shrek 2 references a lot of Shrek 1.
Better out than in, I always say.
Not just with the returning cast of characters, but the events of that first film.
Oh my God,
Prince Charming retreads the same steps Shrek took in the Dragon's Keep. The ending dance party scene and the beginning morning routine scene are very similar to the first film. And in fact, this whole honeymoon sequence follows directly from the ending of Shrek 1, as evident by the onion carriage. Want to see what this shot looks like without the nostalgic home movie filter on it? I can't explain why, but I don't like this. The shot of the moon, the Beware sign, even the storybook opening, while itself a Disney reference, it's now a reference to Shrek 1's storybook. In fact, I spoke to Julia Wolf. Wolf? I think it's just Wolf. Woof, woof is the sound of the police, the artist behind the storybooks of Shrek 1 and 2, to confirm the art style was based on medieval illuminated manuscripts, when she told me that she had in fact fully completed a third storybook, one that has never been seen before. And it wasn't for Shrek 3, because Shrek 3 doesn't have a storybook opening. No, this storybook was created especially for a trailer that never got made. In fact, this missing trailer is confirmed in the DVD commentary.
And this sequence, actually, we had to get ready for a teaser trailer that actually didn't get made.
That's true.
So there's some lost media for you. Add that to the wiki. The long-lost Shrek storybook. Oh wait, I meant to be solving mysteries, not making more of them. In fact, fans of Shrek 1 wondered, if Fiona turned human because Shrek drank the love potion, what happened to Dragon when Donkey drank the potion? And apparently, it was addressed, but got cut.
At one point, we did have her change into a Pegasus, a big pink horsey with wings, and I still think off-screen somewhere she's a Pegasus right now, wondering what the heck's going on.
We're stuck with a tricky question. Is Shrek 1, the first movie specifically, an aged reference?
Hold the phone.
The cultural impact of Shrek 1 can't be understated. Its successful formula of a big-name cast, pop culture references, pop music needle drops, parodies, raunchy humor, and end-film musical numbers led to a string of Shrek-inspired, influenced, or imitating movies, like Robots, Chicken Little, Despicable Me, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and of course, a lot of DreamWorks' own library, like Shark Tale and Madagascar. While perhaps not a direct inspiration, This generational shift of re-examining fairy tale stories and flipping them on their head would pave the way for things like Enchanted, Maleficent, Frozen, and Wicked.
Green.
Shrek is easily one of the most influential movies of the 2000s, and in 2020, it became the first animated movie of the 21st century to be preserved in the US National Film Registry. Shrek even has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so it's safe to say a lot of people know what Shrek 1 is. Even if you've never seen it, there's a lot from Shrek 1 that's still broadly known through meme culture. The characters, Shrek's accent, this face, All-Star, Lord Farquaad memes, etc. In my previous Shrek video, I had a comment from somebody who works at a school who had shown the first Shrek film to their 7th graders, a film they knew all about but many had never actually seen. Their exposure to the film had been solely through meme culture, and in their eyes, things that are this memed on must be bad, and therefore had a predisposed negative view of the film without actually seeing it.
They judge me before they even know me.
Like the film was a joke, but not an intentional one. So it's possible for Shrek 1 to be immensely well known, but not actually seen. I mean, I didn't see Star Wars until I was in my mid-20s. Your weaponized nostalgia won't work on me. Well, unless it's a Sonic movie. And this will affect Shrek 2, because there are details that only make sense if you've actually seen Shrek 1. For example, the reason why this bridge is broken in the first place, the significance of the sunflowers, this line.
You still look like a noble steed to me.
This doesn't negatively impact Shrek 2. It works perfectly fine as a standalone piece with or without Shrek 1. These are small references ultimately, but they're reliant on how well you know Shrek 1, and the more intricate details might be unknown to a viewer without that background knowledge. It's like you can enjoy Shrek 2 without Shrek 1, but if you know Shrek 1, you get a little bit more out of Shrek 2. That was almost like a song, wasn't it? If you enjoy Shrek 1, you can do Shrek 2. If you do Shrek 2, then you do Shrek 1. Such as the leitmotif of Princess Fiona's theme, basically becoming the official DreamWorks intro theme for most of their movies. In some cases, getting altered to fit the style, like the Baby Mobile for Boss Baby and the Trolls a cappella version. This song is called Fairy Tale, and this is my segue to the next chapter. We all know that Shrek is a subversion of fairy tales and nursery rhymes, as seen with how it pulls together fairy tale characters and twists them, like with Prince Charming and the fairy godmother.
The kind of cat the prince would date.
Charles isn't a prince anymore. He's a king who likes to talk about austerity and the cost of living crisis while sitting on a golden throne and wearing a crown and jewels and charging underfunded hospitals £11 million for ambulance parking. But definitely not a prince. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, fairy tales. So we have Doris, the ugly stepsister from Cinderella, but the film's approach to making her ugly is to make her look and sound like a man.
Hey, buddy, let me clue you in.
That's either Larry King or Jonathan Ross, depending if you saw the UK version.
Hey, buddy, let me clue you in.
The deliberate masculine features like stubble combined with the king's surprise could be viewed as a cross-dressing man, something like pantomime dames or drag queens. But in the fairy godmother's potion factory, there's a bunch of before and after pictures that do include Doris, appearing to confirm a transition.
Good for her.
On the one hand, this could be viewed as very 2000s era transphobia, reinforcing cis-normative stereotypes of trans women being just men in a dress. And yeah, that's clearly part of the intended one-note joke of the character. But then again, she has been reclaimed in modern times with some affection. She might have been a gag character in concept, but she does run her own business. The other characters have no problem with her, and the only one who does is a boomer. And in Shrek 3, she becomes part of Fiona's inner circle of women. Doris is arguably one of the very earliest examples of a transgender person in a Hollywood animated movie. And while not exactly the best representation, for many trans youth, it's still representation. In the words of Rose Domu from Gay Times, I may or may not know exactly why I liked the ugly stepsister so much, but I knew that I did, and now I am her. She even pissed off conservatives at the time for promoting transgenderism and cross-dressing, with a little help from the Big Bad Wolf and Pinocchio.
It's a thong! Ow!
Let's just say she's a problematic favourite. And on the subject of challenging gender norms, Prince Charming. That wasn't Prince Charming, that was me. While he's presented to be this vain, entitled, and egotistical mummy's boy,
Oh, thank you, Mother.
he's also presented as a parody of the metrosexual. First coined in 1994, the term metrosexuals became popularized in the 2000s, thanks to famous figures like David Beckham.
What's the name of that dress that you wore?
That's so wrong.
I know it was so wrong, but what?
Metrosexual describes men who take care of their skin, hair, and fashion, which stands opposed to the stereotypes of masculinity. And this creates the perception of being more effeminate, and therefore less of a man.
What do you expect from a girl's toy?
I'm not a girl's toy! I'm not!
This is also seen somewhat with the guy dressed in the powdered wig called a macaroni.
With the chicken strips?
In many ways, the metrosexual of the time. Wealthy men with a focus on high-end fashion and challenging heteronormativity. It's pretty much where the term bigwigs comes from. None of the main characters like Prince Charming. Well, I mean, apart from Puss in Boots.
He sounds dreamy.
Both is good.
He's very effeminate, and much of his funniest moments come from how he grooms himself.
Is that glitter on your lips?
Cherry flavored. Want a taste?
And since his mother, the fairy godmother, handles everything,
Mother!
he's just this ineffectual himbo. Nowadays, male grooming is much more normalized. It's not a huge controversy that a guy might want to put on some moisturizer, even if it is marketed as manly as possible, like Rockface, Assassin, and Bulldog. I wash myself with new Gorilla Explosion!
Gorilla Explosion is probably illegal.
Aside from the cast of returning fairytale creatures, we have Little Red Riding Hood, Tom Thumb and Thumbelina, the Headless Horseman doing a drunk driving test, Jill with a pail of water, Rapunzel, Cinderella, fairies in jars, and elves. During the magic potion sequence, these swans turn into princesses, in a reference to the Swan Princess and Swan Lake. Now, earlier in this scene, we also see tigers in cages too. They were going to transform into Siegfried and Roy, but they were cut so it wouldn't interfere with the DreamWorks TV series Father of the Pride. And we wouldn't want to do that, would we? Shrek and Fiona go to Hansel's honeymoon hideout, a candy house based on Hansel and Gretel, as evident by the sweet treat-based architecture, down to the chocolate log in the fireplace. Wait, these kids own real estate? I like this part where Shrek and Fiona make a Looney Tunes-style cutout hole in the doorway, and later on, despite it being fixed, you can still see where the hole was. It's a nice touch. Far, Far Away is based on the stock phrase once upon a time in a land far, far away, as seen in many fairy tales, and also Star Wars, to emphasize the exotic otherness. It's not happening in any particular time or place, just over there. As Catherine Orenstein puts it, fairy tales are told as flights of fancy. They occur outside of history in an unquantifiably distant past, once upon a time. And in Shrek, Far, Far Away's exotic otherness translates to a place of glitz and glamour, mimicking Hollywood. As for the donkey dragon babies, the idea of dragon hybrids does exist in some folklore. Korea has a dragon with a rooster's head, France has a dragon with a lion's head, and the Solomon Islands have a dragon with a human head. Medusa is said to be part dragon. And in the same year as Shrek 2, Dungeons & Dragons introduced Draco Tours, half man, half dragon. Now we just need a half man, half dungeons, and we'll be all set. So yes, you too can have sex with a dragon. The fairy godmother lists a bunch of fairy tales.
The Golden Bird, the Little Mermaid, Pretty Woman.
One of those is not like the other. So what's the Golden Bird? It's a Brothers Grimm story about a young man, often a prince, hunting a golden bird for the king, but fails to listen to the advice of a talking fox, and things keep going wrong.
What would you say to the prince, your majesty? I should like to marry him even though he had me kidnapped.
Yeah, this one never really caught on. We're also introduced to Puss in Boots.
I say we give him the Barbaca treatment. Oh, Madre, no, por favor.
Have your cat spayed or neutered?
He shares next to nothing with the actual story of Puss in Boots, other than being a puss who is in boots. In the original story, he's more of a trickster who uses deception to get what he wants, like stopping a royal coach to trick the king into giving him fine clothes for his master.
He's stopping just as I hoped he would.
And this is the only story element to carry over into Shrek 2.
Someday I will repay you, unless of course I can't find you or if I forget.
Oh look, he's doing the pose from that famous Napoleon painting that we also see in the king's bedroom. This is off topic, but this is an opportunity to highlight that the paintings in the castle are based on real-life paintings that have Shrek characters awkwardly photoshopped in. Amazing. No notes. This one has a portrait of that poodle dog that Fiona gets before she even gets it. Those artists work fast. What's your excuse? The dress being made by mice is from Cinderella, but it could also be a reference to The Tailor of Gloucester by Beatrix Potter. Friar's Fat Boy is based on Bob's Big Boy, but also Friar Tuck from Robin Hood, who is also apparently starring in Lethal Arrow 4. He's a busy boy.
Yes.
The Poison Apple is from Snow White, The Big Bad Wolf, Huffs and Puffs, The Magic Beans is from Jack and the Beanstalk.
That old farmer tried to sell me for some magic beans. I ain't never got over that.
And Pinocchio's nose growing when he lies is from... not Pinocchio. In the original story, his nose grows before he even has a mouth. Then he lies a bunch of times, but it's only when he tries to lie to the Blue Fairy does she make his nose grow. No, the version you're all thinking of is actually from... As we see with Shrek 1, there was a heavy emphasis on Disney parodies, and that does carry on into Shrek 2 somewhat. Beauty and the Beast, Tinkerbell, the Disney-specific Little Mermaid, this potion-making scene mimics the Little Mermaid, this cottage is based on Sleeping Beauty. Wait, I recognise that factory whistle. But the Disney knocks take a back seat compared to the more Hollywood parodies. I mean, obviously, right? That's a Hollywood sign right there. It's not exactly rocket surgery. The locations are almost all real locations. Rodeo Drive, the Beverly Hills trees, the Beverly Hills sign, the entrance to Paramount Pictures, the Hollywood Bowl, the castle. Oh, wait, that might be just another Disney reference after all. As a result, there's so many more references to Hollywood movies. The opening sequence alone has references to Lord of the Rings and the Spider-Man Upside Down kiss. Do people still know about the Spider-Man Upside Down kiss? I mean, we've had multiple different Spider-Men reboot the movies over and over until we got the huge multiversal crossover No Way Home, but with the next generation being more familiar with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, have we lost the Upside Down kiss along the way?
My donkey senses are tingling all over.
It's been referenced and parodied a bunch of times, and it is generally regarded as one of the greatest movie kisses of all time, so maybe it's a maybe. There's other iconic movie moments here, like the chest burster from Alien, rippling cups from Jurassic Park, this diary bit is a reference to The Shining, this whole sequence is entirely Mission Impossible, and the giant gingerbread man is serving Stave Puft Marshmallow Man, and Godzilla, even down to the Roar. I would argue that these are just sharks and not a direct Jaws reference, but it is close to a beach, so I suppose it might be. The story of Shrek having a hard time meeting Fiona's parents is inspired by the 1967 film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And this scene,
Shrek!
Fiona!
Mom!
is a reference to Rocky Horror.
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Bratt!
Donkey!
Actually, while I'm here, snail fork, sardine server, spork, dessert fork, dinner knife, fish knife, pizza cutter, cheese knife. Yes, I did spend way too much time working that out, thank you.
It's alive!
Is from Frankenstein.
It's alive!
Is from E.T. And Mongo.
There it is, Mongo!
Is from Blazing Saddles.
Come on, Mongo.
But then, of course, we have Puss in Boots, whose entire character is a parody of Zorro. Zorro is a legendary character, first appearing in 1919, a heroic, swashbuckling Spanish Robin Hood-esque character with a secret identity who would go on to inspire characters such as Batman, even being included into Batman's canonical backstory. There's multiple Zorro movies, including one with Zorro's gay twin brother.
They say the Navy makes men. Well, I'm living proof they made me.
But the one Puss is specifically based on is the 1998 movie The Mask of Zorro, even down to both characters being both played by Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas. The film was a huge commercial and critical success and was poised to become a huge franchise. But then the sequel, The Legend of Zelda, The Legend of Zorro, came out 1 year after Shrek 2, and while it did reasonably well in the box office, critics said it failed to capture the spark of the first film, and any plans for any more were completely fizzled out. While there have been attempts to reignite Zorro, including a new 2024 series, none have yet really hit the mainstream in the way that The Mask of Zorro once did, and Puss has since long left his source material behind him, becoming even more fleshed out in solo movies such as the phenomenal The Last Wish. Then there's movie references that I don't think we're meant to get. They're more like vague, familiar tropes, such as this kissing on the beach moment is in From Here to Eternity. The popular running across the meadow trope as seen in Gone with the Wind. Singing on top of a piano is taken from the Fabulous Baker Boys. Before making this video, I didn't know where those tropes originally came from, but you don't need to know where those tropes came from. This moment starts with the Hawaii 5-0 theme as used in the 1968 series and the 2010 series, but after he's done bussing his bousine, he's told,
"Enough, Reggie."
This is a reference to the 1937 Fred Astaire movie, A Damsel in Distress, where the character Reggie is often told off for playing a musical instrument.
Reggie,
Yes, Uncle John?
stop that noise.
Righto.
Now, I don't think many people got that reference in 2004, let alone now. Meanwhile, these trees might look like they're from Lord of the Rings, but they're probably from Wizard of Oz. As is...
I'm melting! I'm melting!
Even the fairy godmother's entrance is like the Wizard of Oz, which leads me to the other side of Hollywood present in this movie. So beyond the mere lip service of pop culture references, there's just culture references. The culture of Hollywood and celebrity. Like this parody of the 1994 O.J. Simpson car chase for the alleged double homicide down to the white Bronco, because it's a type of car and a term for a bucking horse. This chase became one of the most viewed television events in American history, beating some Super Bowls and even 9/11. The voyeuristic spectacle of O.J. Simpson's downfall arguably led to the boom of reality TV shows in the late 90s and 2000s, so he's responsible for 2 evil crimes. And while the next generation probably do know about O.J. Simpson, at least for his murder achievements more than his sporting achievements, but this honestly very mid-car chase from 30 years ago is less well known now. Incidentally, regarding this Cops parody.
Catnip. That's no mine.
Cops is somehow still going to this day, despite one of the cameramen being shot and killed by a cop in 2014, and only ever taken a brief break in 2020 due to the murder of George Floyd and the protests that followed. In 2013, it moved from its Fox syndication and lost its mainstream fame in the process. The Big Wedding Ball is riffing off the big red carpet events such as the Golden Globes and the Oscars, especially with the presence of Joan Rivers.
Oh my, the outfits look gorgeous.
Which makes it weird that for the UK version, she was redubbed by Kate Thornton.
Oh my, the outfits look gorgeous.
Anyway, her presence on the red carpet became a highlight with her comedically blunt and harsh interviews with celebrities.
And subtle on the jewelry, which I know you're opposed to sometimes.
That's not, you call those subtle? You bitch, you're very spoiled now.
In 2004, Joan Rivers moved from E! Entertainment to TV Guide and then was fired in 2007, which brought an end to her unique red carpet interviews.
Well, the abs are fab.
Is a reference to the fairy godmother being voiced by Jennifer Saunders, creator of the British sitcom Absolutely Fabulous, which is also called Ab Fab. See? Ab Fabs, Abs are Fabs, Ab Fab. It's right there. It's just right there. And she tried very hard to avoid the fairy godmother's permadeath.
At the end, she goes up in this little puff of smoke, and I made them record the line, "I'll be back." Like that, and nothing.
No.
As mentioned, the fairy godmother's potion factory has these before and after pictures which alludes to plastic or cosmetic surgery. A horse becomes a unicorn, Two-Eyed Man becomes this cyclops, and this woman becomes a witch.
Good for her.
Now, I'm obviously not saying cosmetic surgery is bad. I've gotten cosmetic surgery to remove some benign tumours, and it made me feel much better about my body. Sometimes natural is just what feels natural. And I also got this massive rack. But at this point in time, this is more of a reference to when plastic surgery was seen as a fashion statement.
Nip and tuck here and there to land that prince for the perfect hair.
Beauty makeover shows in the 2000s like Extreme Makeover, The Swan, and I Want a Famous Face would disguise these exploitative surgeries as being aspirational. Again, cosmetic surgery isn't inherently bad, and I'm sure in many cases some of these people went on with their lives just fine. But these shows were sending a bad signal, especially to young people with body issues. In particular, shows like The Swan preyed on the vulnerable, targeting domestic violence victims and poverty-stricken mothers, promising to transform them. And who else offers to transform people when they're upset?
If you should ever need me, happiness, it's just a teardrop away.
Thanks.
The societal pressure of imposed beauty standards is very present in Shrek 2. Shrek doesn't buy into this culture at all. He already knows he's excluded from it.
Somehow I don't think I'll be welcome at the country club.
In fact, their entrance into Far, Far Away is reminiscent of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Swimming pools, movie stars.
Swimming pool, movie star.
Cultural outsiders. But the more he's there, the more he's pressured into changing who he is, not for himself, but to accommodate other people. It's the recurring theme of the facade. Charming pretends to be Shrek, the fairy godmother pretends to be nice, and the king, well, in a reference to The Princess and the Frog, the king is actually a frog changed into a human, and there are clues placed everywhere. The imagery of lilies, including his wife named Lillian for this interaction.
Do I know you?
No, you must be mistaking me for someone else.
This illustration of a frog? Is he learning frog anatomy, or is this a dissection? He's also pretending to be something he's not for the sake of appearances, and in turn, imposing those standards onto others, even offloading his own guilt onto his daughter.
I'm just thinking about what's best for you. Maybe you should do the same.
That's right, this film has generational trauma too. It really has everything. So there's a pattern of people pretending to be something they're not on the inside, and how societal pressure keeps them trapped in place. The fairy godmother threatens to reveal the king's secret identity to manipulate him. Charming uses the onlooking crowd to force Fiona to dance with him. Shrek leaving Fiona because he thinks it will make her happy. No one is happy. It's not until they all rebel against this that everyone is finally accepting of their true and happy selves. It's a critique of Hollywood, but with a Hollywood ending. Oh, by the way, this headbutt is different in the UK version because the BBFC banned it. Also, this line got changed.
Just the old crusade wound playing up a bit. The old hunting wound playing up a bit.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense since it's supposed to be a John Cleese reference to 40 Towers.
Touch a shrapnel on the wall.
This satire of a phony Hollywood makes all the other imagery of Hollywood also seem phony. For decades, there was so much unquestioning, gushing admiration for the rich and the famous.
It's gonna be champagne wishes and caviar dreams from now on.
I'm Robin Leach with those champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
And after years of underpayments and strikes, the Me Too movement, the VFX studios being chewed up, the rise of AI, corruption and greed have always been a part of Hollywood, but I think the spell has been broken, or at least stained. It's not the place where wishes come true, it's where your wishes will be cancelled for a billionaire's tax break, deleted so they don't have to pay you royalties, or used to produce AI slop. And it's fascinating that Hollywood phoniness was examined in such a huge Hollywood movie, and one produced by a guy who'd go on to back AI to replace animators. Unfortunately, this has aged just fine. Shrek does a lot of parodies of commercials, like,
Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later.
Is from this toy microphone commercial.
Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later.
Hey, man, you want to get your fine Corinthian footwear and your cat cheeks out of my face?
Is from this car commercial.
Fine Corinthian leather.
And there's a very hard to hear clip of a 1950s Bosco commercial.
Flip over the wheel of torture.
I'm not flipping anywhere, sir, until I see Shrek and Fiona.
But in the kingdom of Far, Far Away, the streets are full of commercial products. Fashion shops and brands, and a parody of Rodeo Drive, but given a medieval twist. In this one frame, we have Farbucks, Abercrombie & Witch, Barney's Old York, Armani Armory, and Burger Prince. On the one hand, this might seem like gross product placement, but according to producer Aaron Warner,
our idea was not to give product placement to people, but to, show kind of a reflection of how homogenized our world is. You can go anywhere, and in our world, anytime, and have it be, a place
the
that
same
franchises, and any place with money, has a sort of sense of sameness to it.
So the intent appears to be more of a criticism of these oversaturated franchises rather than glorify them. Now, I don't know if that homogenized message came through. Other than this Starbucks on every corner gag, it's not like we see other locations in Shrek with the same stores everywhere. If anything, it feels more like this storybook fairy tale land has been hijacked and become gentrified.
You capitalist bitch!
Really, they're just here to be recognized uncritically by the audience. The only person to show any criticism towards them is Shrek, but only because they serve to make him feel more out of place and out of his comfort zone, rather than some bold statement on capitalism. But then Shrek is a socialist.
That's okay, buddy. We're from the Union.
So maybe I looked for every store I could see and checked if they're still in business today. Banana Republic had to half the number of stores it had, and Tower Records went bankrupt the same year Shrek 2 came out, forcing them to close all their stores and become an online store instead. Similarly,
What?
Playboy magazine, following many troubled years, ultimately went online only during COVID, with upcoming plans to relaunch in print, but annually instead of monthly. And the cover is a reference to Sports Illustrated, specifically this issue. Of course I worked out which issue it was. I made the video where I checked every issue of Playboy just to find one image, so this shouldn't be a surprise to you anymore. Anyway, Sports Illustrated has also suffered massively in recent years, including getting caught publishing AI-generated articles. A dark day for boobies everywhere. There's other brands like...
No, that's the old Keebler's place.
Is a reference to these cookie commercials.
Hex-lax?
Is a reference to laxatives. We have references to E-Entertainment, Remax, Viagra. Oh, wait. Let me back up. Yeah. There's a brand name hidden in this scene. So, in CG animation, there's always going to be technical limitations. Prince Charming tossing his hair is limited to a one-off shot, and Puss in Boots has a cape that he instantly discards and never wears again. Because, at the time, in CG animation, these were too hard. And when it comes to reflections, it can be very tricky to animate. There's shortcuts you can do to show the reflection, but not the thing it's reflecting. One method is reflection mapping. You can take these HDRI maps, or high dynamic range image maps just means maps, and then apply them to, say, these shiny balls, and it creates the illusion of reflection, like shiny armor or glass bottles, for example. So you can make these maps a static image of the environment they're in or similar, and you can have a natural looking reflective object in the scene. Take this scene where the king meets Puss in Boots. The reflection in his eyes is a still image of the king's face, looking weirdly terrified. And here, when he's doing his big eyes, inspired by Margaret Keane, you can see that the guards are looking at him, which makes sense, except they reuse that reflection in Far, Far Away Idol, which doesn't make any sense. But what's in his eyes in this scene? It's hard to see at first, but if you flip the shot and toggle the brightness a little, there's some text hidden in those big eyes. Not a word, but a logo. Remax. Remax is a real estate company, and as far as I can see, they have nothing to do with DreamWorks or Shrek. Remax has a hot air balloon as part of its branding, and they also have an actual hot air balloon. The image in the eyes could be the Remax balloon, like the image was taken from the interior of the balloon, almost like you're looking up at it while it's inflated, which might explain why the logo is reversed. These curved lines could be the seams of the balloon, which give the eyes a nice sense of curvature and depth. But balloon or not, why is the Remax logo here at all? Well, Remax also do 360 house tours with familiar looking shiny balls, so maybe one of those made it into this movie. 360 images were around roughly at this time, such as Google Maps, launching just a few years after the film in 2007, but Remax 360 tours didn't seem to begin until around 2020. I have no idea why the Remax logo is hidden inside Puss's eyes. I presume they didn't want the reflection of Shrek looking at Puss, as it would diminish the adorableness. I'm betting it was just a placeholder, something they intended to swap out later, but didn't. I mean, this scene in Shrek 1 has this hidden photo of an unknown woman inside this booth. I don't think that was intentional, but Z from Ants in the other booth, that probably was on purpose. Either way, all this was probably just an accident, and not some secret attempt at subliminal messages like playing a song backwards.
Hey, yow, you're a noisha in Shigdaimon. Go, boy.
In media, there is diegetic and non-diegetic music. Basically, if the characters can hear the music, like on a radio or someone singing, that's diegetic. If they can't, like it's the soundtrack or the score or something, that's non-diegetic. For example, Funky Town is non-diegetic, but Le Freak by Chic is diegetic. I'm mainly focusing on the diegetic music, and you can't talk about Shrek 2 without talking about Holding Out for a Hero. Holding Out for a Hero is a song by Bonnie Tyler, made for the 1984 movie Footloose. Let's listen to a YouTube save 3 seconds of it, shall we? Wait, that wasn't Bonnie Tyler. So the co-writer of Holding Out for a Hero is Jim Steinman, who lifted a lot of elements from his own song, Stark Raving Love. Today, the song is everywhere. On June 10th, 2021, it was in a He-Man trailer. Then on June 14th, it was in the trailer for the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Then on June 16th, it was in an episode of Loki. That's 3 times in the space of 1 week. It's an iconic go-to needle drop song in loads of TV and movies, especially moments of newfound determination.
Did I just save you while you were listening to this song?
So, yeah, you know this song. If you've ever watched one movie in your whole life, you know this song. The other big musical number is Ricky Martin's Livin' Da Vida Loca, which is Spanish for Living the Crazy Life. And I'm guessing it's mostly here because of Puss in Boots and Spanish. Puss in Boots, Puss is Spanish.
Isn't we
supposed to be having a fiesta?
This ending is less iconic than I'm a Believer, but the song is still pretty well known today, mostly from a lot of TV singing and dancing shows. Oh, speaking of which, Far, Far Away Idol. Based on American Idol, this was a DVD extra, technically not part of Shrek 2, so I'm not going to break everything down about it, but basically, each character sings a song and you pick who you want to be the winner. But only Puss, Donkey and the Shrek and Fiona duet have unique endings. Picking any other character will instead have Simon Cowell sing instead.
For what is a man?
The start of his very short-lived animation career. But did you know that Far, Far Away Idol had an official winner? So, there was also a VHS version which can't have the function of picking a winner with multiple different endings. So, instead, they had an online vote. Log on to the site and vote for your favourite. And 3 days later, DreamWorks officially announced the winner of Far, Far Away Idol was Doris, the Ugly Stepsister.
Good for her.
In Doris's Bar, The Poison Apple, Captain Hook sings A Little Drop of Poison by Tom Waits. And in fact, Tom Waits remade the song for Shrek, so he is the voice of Captain Hook here. Except when we come back later, Hook's voice is changed to sing People Ain't No Good by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds instead. He might be a bad guy, but the man has range. Like in Shrek 1, Donkey sings a bunch of songs. We've got one, Ain't Stopping Us Now, Tomorrow from Annie, All By Myself, and the theme to Rawhide. Rawhide is a 1959 Western TV show co-starring Clint Eastwood, arguably best known for his theme song.
Keep them doggies moving, Rawhide.
The Rawhide theme song has only popped up a few times in the past 20 years, the only noteworthy example being Happy Feet 2. So I'm not sure this is a reference many will get anymore. But don't feel too bad. The song's co-writer, Ned Washington, also wrote all the lyrics for Disney's Pinocchio, including When You Wish Upon a Star, which is now Disney's theme song. So, you know, he's fine. I mean, he's dead, but apart from that, he's fine. There's other music references like The Beatles.
Then how do you explain Sergeant Pompous in the Fancy Pants Club Band?
Love Potion No. 9 by The Searchers, and... We also get these dance moves such as The Worm, Flashdance, Michael Jackson, Grease, and the stage dive with a very quick dog pee joke. The posters on Fiona's walls represent singers and bands. Stonehenge references Spinal Tap and Led Zeppelin. Knaves to Knights is Boys to Men. Loot Heroes appears to be referencing Guitar Hero Down to the Pose, but the first game came out a year after Shrek 2, so I have no idea why this is here. Lancelot, who might be the same guy in Shrek 3, it's unclear, is doing what's called the rap squat, or the prison pose, popular with rap artists, so this is probably meant to be Eminem. Chastity Belt is referencing Britney Spears and her original wholesome bubblegum image, but even then, by the time Shrek 2 came out, she was in her toxic era, fully shrugging off that squeaky clean image. Then there's the clear Justin Timberlake reference before he'd go on to voice Arthur in Shrek 3. Now, in 2004, this ceiling pinup got a huge reaction, as people thought this was a reference to the fact that Fiona's voice actor Cameron Diaz was dating Justin Timberlake at the time. The directors had to make it very clear this wasn't the case.
The press jumped on that more than anything else in the movie.
And you know what? I will say this right now, right here. We did not know they were going out when we put that in.
No, we did not.
Originally, the poster was going to say In Sync, following the pattern of medieval pop singers of the other posters, but it was simplified to just Sir Justin for a faster read. And given that Shrek 2 began production before Shrek 1 was even finished, and certainly before the two were dating, the poster turned out to just be this weird fluke.
They came out and said, we're going out. And we went, ooh, well, maybe we should run this past them. So we ran it past them, and they thought it was funny, and they said, fantastic, go for it.
In summary, what was a basic Justin Timberlake reference unintentionally blew up into this huge fourth-wall-breaking meta joke involving Cameron Diaz, but as it's now been almost a full generation since their breakup, this added meaning behind the poster is gone, so the gag hasn't aged badly. It just went back to what it always was, just a very basic Justin Timberlake reference. Shrek doesn't really do topical jokes for this very reason. They age super quick, it's too niche so no one will get it, and this will ruin the tour. There's a lot more references I haven't covered, such as...
Come, Elizabeth!
Is from Sanford and Son.
Oh, Elizabeth, I'm
got me, Nanny?
I hate Mondays.
Is from Garfield.
I hate Mondays.
And
You know, in some cultures, donkeys are revered as the wisest of all creatures.
this is a Bible reference, which implies Christianity exists in the Shrek universe. Except that we all know that Shrek is a godless creature. But now, let's answer the question. How has Shrek 2 aged? Let's look at the data. As you can see, the presence of Hollywood dominates Shrek 2. In fact, when you compare the data to Shrek 1, the ratio of Disney references plummets faster than most Disney villains. With a drop of 69%.
Ooh, nice!
About 1/4 of Shrek 2's pop culture references have become, what I would argue, aged references. This is an increase compared to Shrek 1, but I think that comes with just how many more pop culture references Shrek 2 makes. In fact, it's an increase of about 69%.
Ooh, nice!
In other words, the vast increase in and heavy reliance on pop culture references has, on a technical level, made Shrek 2 age worse than Shrek 1. But thanks to its subversive satire of Hollywood, memorable twists on fairy tale characters, and so many iconic moments, Shrek 2 is arguably the best movie of the franchise, and deservedly so. Does that mean in a couple of years' time I have to look at Shrek 3, arguably the worst movie of the franchise? Well, maybe. I find it fascinating examining pop culture because cultural shifts can be so invisible that it's only when you look back on it do you question things like, when I play Balatro for the millionth time and still wonder, what is a hanging Chad anyway? Or watching Scooby-Doo and wondering, why does Fred wear that ascot? Or where did the idea for the lost city of Atlantis come from anyway? Well, fortunately, there are other creators who talk about this stuff. J.J. McCullough breaks down the American cultural references scattered throughout Balatro. NerdSync delves into the history of this iconic neckerchief. And Johnny Harris finds an actual map claiming to know the location of Atlantis. I love learning unusual stuff like this. That's why I can get lost sometimes scrolling through Nebula, because it'll present me with solutions to questions I had no idea I had from creators I love. And they're all here. In case you don't know, Nebula is a prestige streaming service full of the best video creators out there. And also me. On a platform that rewards and supports creators for just being as curious as you or I. There's deep dives across a plethora of subjects, yes, but I've been on Nebula for a while now, and in that time, I've witnessed how rapidly it has expanded on its original content. Full-length documentaries such as Boomers by Tom Nicholas and its exploration on the questionable legacy of the Boomer generation. Game shows such as the globe-trotting game of hide-and-seek by the adventurous team behind Jetlag. And high-production films such as Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend, a unique exploration of toxic relationships by Abigail Thorne. On top of podcasts, classes, and news, Nebula is fighting for what content creation can really be, giving the space for creators to spread their wings and show what they're capable of, with opportunities never thought possible. And you can have all of this and so much more under just one subscription. With my link, go.nebula.tv/Eddache, you can save 40% on your Nebula subscription, just $36 for a year or $3 a month. Also, Nebula has just released guest passes. Current Nebula subscribers will receive monthly guest passes that will allow them to invite anyone they want to 1 week's free access to Nebula. No restrictions and no upfront payment information needed. Just jump right in. So remember, that's go.nebula.tv/Eddache for this mind-blowing deal.
The Thriller explosion is probably illegal.
Now, we're sexy!
Special shout out and my eternal gratitude to my very, very supportive patrons, especially since this video took a while. Patrons such as Miguel V. Zap, Zion Craze, Kiwi Conductor, Bubbles, Moel Kasemi, Vinny Vex, Drifter Star, Beemer Tectonic, Rusty Robot, Setsune Wave, Teletoon, Glenn Sugden, Josiah, Trenton Gyrone, Louis Wild, Brandon Sires, Benjamin Allen, Aronis, Joel Jennings, Matthew Smith, Clam Wamsley, Nathan Jawinati, Brett Halford, and Outlaw Zorro. And if you would like to consider supporting me, then please do so on Patreon.